Hi, I'm Dr. David Reader of the Newcastle Law School. I'm on the Brexit panel at the conference and I'm going to be speaking about a few things, but most importantly for me perhaps on national security review in the UK, which is a bit of a subset, maybe a little parallel to merger control, but certainly encapsulates mergers. And we've had some really interesting developments since Brexit on this. Theresa May, in her speech to become party leader, she was very keen to see new powers introduced which would allow the government to intervene to protect against unwanted foreign investment, and that set the ball rolling on a number of interim measures that we've seen over the last few years, which has now culminated in the National Security and Investment Review, which came into force at the beginning of this year. And that Act does a number of things. What it does most significantly is to repeal the national security regime which exists under the Enterprise Act as a public interest exception to the competition test. There are a few things about the National Security Investment Act which can possibly create a few concerns. There's a few uncertainties which may make for some interesting test cases in the future. One key thing that I'm interested in hearing people's views about today is how national security as a term isn't given a definition under the Act, which is distinct from national security as it was treated under the Enterprise Act, very much aligned to the EU's definition of citizen safety and public security relating to the military and emergency services. The government has decided to omit a definition for national security under the new Act to provide flexibility for unforeseen national security concerns. Now that flexibility is good on the one hand. On the other hand, however, it does possibly provide a risk of national security being used in a broader sense, something that we're maybe more familiar with in terms of national interest, something that you might see in applied in France, for example, a broader definition in the US. That brings with it its own concerns, the risk of protectionism, for example, the possibility that economic interests, industrial policy goals might also be pursued, something that goes beyond what would tend to be considered in the narrow sense of being national security. Now, I'll be speaking a little bit more in the panel session about it, but the sponsor of the bill, the National Security Investment Bill, did say that it was the intention of government to have a very narrow focus on national security, one which would be more aligned actually to what we see under the one which would actually be more aligned to what we would see in the definition under the old Enterprise Act provisions. So it's an interesting question, interesting case study potentially coming up, and we'll have to see what people make of it in the panel. But also, this could end up being quite an interesting development in terms of whether industrial policy goals could have the possibility of entering into UK merger control via the back door, via this new Broad Act, and time will tell, we shall see.